In the beginning of that cold, grey year, in a small, forgotten village in rural Scotland, something far beyond human understanding began to manifest. It wasn't a simple natural phenomenon, nor even a local legend that the residents avoided telling. It was a dark presence rooting itself in the land, a curse that awakened the worst nightmares. Farmer Angus MacLeod, a man accustomed to dealing with the harshness of rural life, was the first to realize something was wrong. Cows began to disappear without explanation, and some nights echoes of distant screams pierced the thick mists, carrying an indescribable sense of terror. Angus was a practical man, not one for superstitions, but even he couldn't deny the growing weight of unease that gripped the village. His wife, Helen, had nightmares of eyes glowing in the shadows of the barn, eyes that seemed to watch her every move with malevolent intent. Soon, it wasn't just the farm that was affected. Children began to mysteriously disappear without a trace, as if swallowed by the very ground. The few remaining residents barricaded themselves in their homes, locking doors and windows. But the feeling that something was lurking only grew. Fear escalated to the point where no one dared to go out at night, and stories of an ancient, vengeful entity began to circulate, whispered in the corners of empty taverns. One night, Angus decided to confront whatever it was, armed only with an old lantern and a courage that seemed about to break. As he approached the barn, he felt a presence that couldn't be described with ordinary words. It was as if the air itself had weight, a cold that burned the skin, and a deafening silence that preceded the end. Inside, amidst dancing shadows, he found a grotesque creature with long claws and red eyes like embers, staring fixedly at him. The man tried to flee but tripped and fell. The creature advanced and everything went dark. The next morning, Angus was not found. Only claw marks on the ground, and a deadly silence enveloped the property. This was just the beginning of a series of events that would forever change the history of that village and of those who dared to defy the evil that resided within it. A few months after Angus's disappearance, a young Australian journalist named Mia Sullivan, specializing in paranormal phenomena, decided to visit the village, drawn by the dark stories and the mystery surrounding the place. She was known for her courage and professional skepticism, but what she found there was enough to shake even her firmest convictions. On her very first night, Mia set up cameras and recorders in strategic points around the village, trying to capture some indication of what haunted that forgotten corner of the world. However, nothing could prepare her for what happened when one of the cameras captured an indistinct figure, a shadow that seemed to materialize out of nowhere with abrupt movements and a gaze that froze the soul. The journalist decided to follow the shadow's trail, which led her to a dense, damp forest where the air seemed to pulse with an oppressive, malignant energy. In the heart of that woods, Mia found a clearing where the ground was marked with ancient, undecipherable symbols, as if someone or something had performed macabre rituals there. As she approached to record, she felt invisible hands gripping her ankles and a deep, distant whisper telling her not to proceed. In a panic, she tried to flee, but the forest seemed to close in, twisting to trap her mind in an endless nightmare. In the following days, the few villagers who still dared to speak of the journalist claimed that Mia disappeared without a trace, and that at times her face would appear in the shadows of the village, her eyes pleading for help, while corrupted whispers echoed on the winds. This story spread across the internet, generating debates and conspiracy theories. But what few knew was that what pursued Mia was not confined to that village. It seemed to want to reach anyone who dared to unearth its secrets. And you, have you ever felt a strange shiver when hearing or reading a story that seemed too real? Or perhaps you've had a dream so vivid it felt like a warning. Tell me in the comments, what was the strangest or most frightening experience you've ever had? And if you believe the supernatural might be much closer than we imagine. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because here we always bring stories that will keep you awake, but also connect you with a community that understands this search for the unknown. Let's build this space together where fear transforms into conversation and learning. After Mia's disappearance, the village seemed even more silent, as if it carried an invisible weight that time could not dissolve. But the story I'm going to tell now is about Lucas, a private investigator from South Africa, specializing in inexplicable cases. Lucas was hired by a desperate family to find their teenage daughter, who mysteriously disappeared after visiting the same village where Angus and Mia vanished. He arrived with a baggage of skepticism, but what he found was a tangled web of evidence that defied all logic. During one of the nights he spent in the village, Lucas encountered a grotesque creature, something that seemed to have come out of an ancient nightmare, an amalgamation of bones and skin that moved with supernatural speed. It whispered names, as if it were hunting specific souls to feed an insatiable hunger. Lucas tried to flee, but was cornered in an old cabin that, according to local legends, was the epicenter of the macabre events. Inside, he found traces of rituals, dry bloodstains scattered on the floor, and a leather-bound book filled with symbols and names of victims who seemed marked for death. When he tried to leave, the creature attacked. The investigator fought with all his might, but his scream echoed through the village that night, and the next morning only his footprints remained, disappearing into the forest. He was never seen again. The missing girl's family broke off the contract, and the village remained there, a dark stain on the map, carrying secrets that few dare to tell. Lucas's story was just the beginning of a sequence of horrors in those surroundings. In a distant Alaskan village, a nurse named Helena, who worked in a local clinic, began to notice increasingly disturbing phenomena involving patients and residents. It all started when an elderly man, known for being superstitious, appeared in the emergency room with unexplained wounds, deep marks as if something had scratched his skin from within. He said that the shadows were living, and that there was a presence that had followed him since the night he visited the Scottish village. Helena, though skeptical, began to investigate the reports. One night, while reviewing documents, she heard noises coming from the hospital storage room. Upon entering, she saw indistinct figures forming in the darkness, shadows that twisted, that whispered names of people who days later died under violent and mysterious circumstances. Patients began to exhibit catatonic states, some with completely black eyes, others vomiting a dark substance that seemed to carry a curse. Desperate, Helena decided to return to the cursed village, believing that the origin of this malevolent energy lay there. Upon arrival, she found an abandoned library where an old diary recounted the horrors of previous generations, describing an entity that fed on fear and death, capable of traversing dimensions to hunt its prey. Helena decided she needed to end it, but the entity was not willing to let its prey escape. In a last attempt, Helena entered the forest to confront the evil and disappeared, never to be found. Helena's absence triggered a wave of escalating fear in the Alaskan village. Residents began to disappear, one by one, always during the night, leaving no trace. The clinic closed, and a dense, almost palpable fog enveloped the nearby forest, as if the air itself had been corrupted by something beyond human comprehension. Among the few who remained was Raphael, a tour guide who used to take adventurers to explore those icy lands. Driven by curiosity and fear, he decided to investigate what had happened. During one of his walks, he found strange symbols etched into the trees, ancient drawings that seemed to pulsate with dark energy. The further he went, the more he felt he was being watched. One night, camping near a frozen lake, Raphael was attacked by an invisible force. His scream echoed through the forest. and the next day he was found unconscious with mysterious burn marks on his body. Raphael survived, but carried the trauma of that encounter forever. He recounted seeing a figure made of shadows and fire, with red eyes glowing in the darkness, an entity that sought not only to destroy, but to imprison souls in eternal torment. The Alaskan village was abandoned after that, transforming into a place of dark legends and warnings for anyone who dared to venture into that region. These heavy, horrifying accounts remind us that there are forces in the shadows that we should perhaps never awaken. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these stories unsettled you the most? Have you had any strange experiences, something you can't explain that sent a chill down your spine? Share in the comments so we can create a community that understands what it's like to face the unexplainable. And if you're not yet part of our group, be sure to subscribe, because here we dive deep into real terror, unfiltered. Thank you for making it this far. If you liked the video, leave a like, and more importantly, tell us what you learned from these stories, because true terror sometimes lies in what remains unspoken. Until next time, and be careful what lurks in the darkness.